What's up, guys? It's your boy, Tanner Taylor, coming back at you with another episode of the Empirical Scouting Podcast, episode 25. Today, we are going to be bringing you our official 2024 NFL Draft predictive mock draft. We've done plenty of mock drafts in the past where you and I kind of take the reins of an NFL GM and try to decide what we personally would do, which is very different in some senses than the consensus of a lot of people. But today, you and I are going to try to join hand in hand and try to predict exactly what NFL GMs are going to be doing this Thursday night. As a preference, we are recording this on April 23rd at roughly 10:30 p.m. So any trades, any news that come out afterwards, obviously we're not going to have that knowledge, and don't hold it against us if anything happens. I think last time we did a mock draft, the Keenan Allen news dropped when we were on like pick 25. That trade happened. So
And
we
then
can kind of go back
and then
talk
the
about
Minnesota trade right
Yep.
afterwards too happened.
Yeah. So hopefully nothing happens within the next, 24 hours. I kind of like it when everything drops on the actual draft, when big trades, big news just hits on that Thursday, especially for that first round. It's always fun. Anything from when AJ Brown and Amari Cooper got traded, kind of similar out of nowhere. We obviously know about the ski mask, the smoking mask, I should say, of Larry Tunsil. So just those kind of things that just come out on the actual draft day. It makes the whole day so exciting. You ready to put your GM hat on?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Sounds good to me. So the first pick's going to be pretty hard.
It's definitely Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix, round one. No, obviously it's going to be Caleb Williams. Consensus, minus 2,000 lock of the century on the books. Like he's going. He already knows it. He's basically confirmed it. Chicago's basically confirmed it. There's no hiding from the truth. So Caleb Williams at 1. So this is where the fun begins because I know your rankings are a little bit different than a lot of consensus. We got Washington at number 2. A lot of these odds have been shifting. I mean, a couple days ago when we did the betting odds video, we literally watched Drake May and Jay Daniels odds shift in front of our eyes. They kept going that day. I even sent you a text that it actually completely reversed and Drake May was the heavy favorite that night. And then literally the next day, within 12 hours, it went right back to Jane Daniels being the heavy favorite at 2. So what do you predict is going to happen here?
It's pretty tough just because the Jane Daniels stuff that's happening. There's so much out there that he's not happy, and I don't know. I think even maybe Antonio Brown said Jane Daniels is telling teams now that he's gonna pull an Eli Manning and only wants to play for the Raiders or something. I don't know. I think Jaden Daniels is the pick still, for better or worse. But this whole maybe smoke screens out there about his personal feelings about the franchise are kind of interesting right now. So, but I would go. I think Jaden's still the pick.
I'm in agreement. I think we should just go ahead and select Jaden at 2 to Washington. I just believe that's going to be the pick. I think I read or heard yesterday that they actually kind of made up. Jane Daniels and his representatives kind of talked to Washington. They were just pissed off about the whole, what was it, the Top Golf thing where they all the quarterbacks got together and went, and that's how San Francisco has done in the past apparently, and they brought that over. So I don't know. I'm still thinking that's going to be Jane Daniels. I think that's going to be too electric of a player for them to pass up.
Get over your own ego is what I would say to that. But
I agree. So we'll move over to number 3 with New England Patriots. A lot of talk with them about trading that pick, or if X quarterback here is not there. That quarterback has actually changed, I think, twice over the last couple of months. Who they believe to be targeting, what quarterback or what type of move do you think they're going to make here at 3?
I mean, I think it's got to be Drake May or Jaden, whoever gets to them. But I mean, I could reasonably see them moving back to 6 or something like that if the Giants want to come out for JJ.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Drake May is he's got to be the pick, right?
I would think so,
right?
Personally. Yeah, I would think it's got to be Drake May. I would say let's just personally go ahead and take Drake May in that situation. Now this could be a prime candidate for a trade if they really don't like Drake and say they want to target JJ or just get a quarterback later on in the draft. But here, I just can't see them passing on Drake.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that they would pass on the opportunity to have a franchise level type quarterback. Um, you know, even though the team may not be ready, like you don't always get the opportunity to draft a
Mhm.
quarterback of this level every year. So I think moving on to pick number 4 is where things get a little bit spicier. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we should have established this, but we can do it on the fly. Are we doing trades? Because my personal prediction here is a trade.
Okay.
But that's just where I'm at. I
Yeah,
think
I'm cool with trades. Do you really think that Arizona would trade out of getting Marvin Harrison though?
yes, I do. I mean, and Marvin's great and everything, but um, I don't know. I'm really thinking this is Minnesota swapping 11 and 23 for number 4. Truthfully, that I think Minnesota is going to get up to this pick personally.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. I think I can get down with that. We always see some crazy trades happen. Sometimes they don't last. They don't happen until like the later on, like the 8, 9, 10 range. But we saw, especially like last year with Arizona, there could be some crazy trades that happen in that top 5. So let's just go ahead and do that because I do think that Minnesota is going to be quite aggressive. I think the last couple of days they've been a little trying to pull back on we want JJ McCarthy train. I think they've got they know that's gotten out there so popular that everyone has it mocked to that. So I want to say there's been reports of them, saying, well, we can just kind of sit back and we're not going to overspend. We'll take a quarterback at 11 or 23 if that's necessary. We're okay with that. But I don't think at the end of the day they actually are. And so I can get with this, and they get aggressive and trade up, especially now they have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the getting 23 in the first place was posturing for, um, getting getting up to number 4 here. And I know you were mentioning JJ, but like I think JJ is the pick here, truthfully too.
Yeah. I don't think they're
So
moving up for anything else other than JJ McCarthy. So we can go ahead and give them that. All right, as you guys can see, we have some technical difficulties, so we're going to be using a different website for our mock draft. Same positions 1 through 4. Now we're moving over to number 5 with the Los Angeles Chargers. The big thing here is I think Jim Harbaugh really likes to build through the trenches, and I think with Joe Alt on the board, that's going to be their target. However, in this scenario, with 4 quarterbacks going back to back to back to back, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. falling into the laps of the Los Angeles Chargers. They just got rid of Keenan Allen. They did just get rid of Mike Williams. So they desperately need another wide receiver to link up with Justin Herbert. Do you think they could pass on Marvin Harrison, fall into their laps, and sticking with their guns and drafting Joe Alt? Or you think Jim Harbaugh is going to have to bite the bullet and draft his previous arch rival in Marvin Harrison Jr.?
uh, I mean, I think here in this situation, it would be they're drafting Marvin for sure. Like it's hard to justify passing on a player as talented as Marvin is.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like we were talking about the Ohio State Michigan connection and such, but like Harbaugh, some of the first things he's done here since taking over is signing um, Dobbins and Michael Thomas, 2 like former Ohio State
Yeah.
players. So I just thought that it's funny overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, bringing in another Buckeye, but no, I think I agree. I want to give. I think their main priority is tackle. I think they'll find a way to get that later on in the draft. And in this situation, you just can't pass on Marvin Harrison. So we're going to give Justin Herbert another weapon in Marvin Harrison Jr., an electric one at that. We'll move over to number 6 with the New York Giants. They have a couple needs on the board. They might have been hoping that Marvin Harrison somehow slipped to them and Joe Alt will stay on the board. So now they're looking at Joe Alt and be like, okay, we could definitely use a tackle. Our guys haven't really been, playing up the speed as they would like to hope, but they also desperately need wide receiver. So in my opinion, I think they're debating right here between Neighbors and Joe Alt. What side of that are you leaning?
I would lean Neighbors,
Okay,
just because
I'm on the
I
same
like.
page.
Yeah, I mean they signed Jermaine Illuminor, who's like a solid like bridge type of player, and then they signed John Runyon as well. Like they added to the offensive line in free agency, like with like starting level type players. And then their wide receiver core is still like slated to be Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, Wandale, and Hodgins, which is like cool.
Yeah,
like 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 it's just one of those things where it's got to be Neighbors here
mhm.
in this situation, in my opinion. But
I
that's
agree.
just my opinion.
I think they are own Neighbors here as well. I think they just need a wide receiver. Their room is very bare, and you got to give Danny Dimes something. In this situation, they wouldn't been able. They'd have to reach heavily on a quarterback, and They're probably going to be drafting a quarterback, and later on day two. However, right now they have to roll with Danny Dimes. So get him an electric weapon that can maybe get him back to how he was a couple years ago when he got paid. So we'll move over to 7. Tennessee, I think it's a slam dunk. They're probably the most excited person in the entire draft outside of Chicago. Are we on the same page here, Joe Alt? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's
It's.
slam
I don't
dunk.
think
Like,
there's a lot of discussion needed right now.
yeah, they're probably the high. They're the most ecstatic people in the whole entire draft outside of Chicago, most likely, if that happened. So we'll move over
Yeah.
to our Atlanta Falcons at 8. There's been talks about Byron Murphy. There's been talks about even like Quinion Mitchell. Recent talks of Latu overtaking Dallas Turner as the pick. Obviously, we could also trade back. What if you had to choose the exact scenario that you could predict is going to happen this Thursday? What do you think is going to happen?
Arizona trading 11 and some change, moving to 8 and taking Romo Dunze. That's
So
what I would predict
yeah,
truthfully.
without bringing into this being like a whole Atlanta Falcons thing, I know we always kind of allude to it. There was recent reports that Terry Fontenot, our GM, has been exploring trade backs. And obviously it's all just for now, just getting some preliminary talks out of the way. So whatever happens on draft night, if there's a guy at that certain position, he knows which teams are going to be looking for him. In this situation, we talked about this in the past that we do believe that a team like Roma Dunze is that last of that like that top tier wide receivers. He's gone by 9 in this situation. Would a team trade up? And it's actually a very interesting thought process that if Arizona would do this because they're basically kind of pulling what Houston did last year using them in a sense. Like they're, how they kind of moved out and then moved back in for their guy, Will Anderson. It's kind of what Arizona is doing here. They're willing to pass on Marvin Harrison in order to get that first round pick. But now they're going to trade back up to get Roma Dunze. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a little bit of a profit in what they got. And they have to believe that Roma Dunze is going to be a really, really great receiver as well for passing on Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, and I mean, if we don't do that, like if that isn't
Mhm.
what were to happen, if we don't do a trade, my overall prediction is going to be actually Latu. I do buy into some of the rumors out there that he's the guy at 8 for the Falcons, and I know
Yeah.
betting odds have swung that way heavily. Um, so it to me, it's like either the options are there's 4 options:
Yeah.
Latu, Turner, Murphy, or that trading that's
Yeah.
swapping with like Arizona or something like
Mhm.
that.
I do want to
Um,
say let's explore that trade real quickly. And what would it cost for Arizona to move up? Because I do think some crazy stuff's going to happen. I think the odds for trades in the first round is at 6.5, heavily favored over. So there's going to be a lot of trades happening in this first round, and I really do think the Falcons want to trade back. And their situation where they have that last receiver there available that could do it, and they also have guys like Brock Bowers and then so on and so forth that could trade up. But in this situation, I really do think a team would get aggressive for real.
so yeah, we talked through the trade here, and we ended up doing swapping Atlanta's 8th overall pick for Arizona's 11th overall pick, and then in turn, Atlanta gave up their 4th round pick 104, and then they're getting Arizona's 3rd round pick. So Atlanta jumps in, gets another top 100 pick, and only has to move back a few slots, and they're probably going to end up still getting a player they really want. So
Yeah.
Arizona at 8, and then I think we agreed that Romo Dunze was the guy here for them. So they get a go-to wide receiver now, which is a need they had. That leaves Chicago in a tough spot because I'm sure Chicago probably would have loved to have Rome as well. But they still have DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, so
they're not hurting too bad for wide receivers.
not at all. My initial gut instinct here is edge rusher with the wide receivers off the board. I would lean Dallas Turner here for them. I don't know if you have any
He seems
inclination either way.
I think Dallas Turner's the kind of edge rusher that they'd be eyeing in this situation. The big name, the Bama name on it. Extremely athletic. He doesn't have to walk in and be the main edge rusher on that team, which I think is going to help him a lot. Because a lot of the attention is not going to be on him at first, especially being a rookie. So I think that he'll be able to flourish and be able to learn that system. That defense, the second half of the year, showed a lot of promise, and I think they would be very excited to have Dallas Turner join them.
Yeah, I mean, and then you kind of pair him up with like a Montez Sweat, who's kind of a bigger edge. So I think it works out all around. Then we get the Jets. The Jets have had some rumors all over the place. It was initially Talize Fuaga, is the guy they want. They're locked in on him. Lately, I feel like it's become Bowers is the guy they're looking at. And I mean, I think Bowers fits the bill here, truthfully. They brought in other offensive linemen. I don't know if I would rely on those offensive linemen given their age. But I have a feeling that's what they're thinking is we're going to rely on these guys and we're going to add talent to this offense for Aaron Rodgers to run things through. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's they got basically Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head for that offense right now.
No one really worth it. They definitely have a need at the skill position. It's just hard for me to have them passing on a tackle. Also, only having one tackle taken in the top 10. We don't really see that happen too often. But then again, this is extremely special wide receiver class. And then obviously quarterbacks can get pushed up in a lot of quarterback needy teams as it sits currently. So I'll roll with whatever you believe happens here because I'm truly split on tackle or Bowers. And I really don't. I would be a flip of the coin for me.
I just took a peek at the depth chart. They brought in Mike Williams as well, but Mike Williams and Wilson are both outside type of players. Wilson has versatility; he can go all over the place. But I almost feel like Bowers is kind of that last remaining element to that offense, somebody that kind of works out of the slot. For them, I don't know. I get what you're saying. It's tough to reconcile the whole thing with tackles, but like I said, I almost feel like they are kind of thinking they're going to rely on Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses at tackle. And then they brought in John Simpson at guard, and then the rest of the line, it's Tippmann and Vera Tucker. So it's they have a solid, 5 across, and then a little bit of depth with Carter Warren and Max Mitchell. Guys I don't necessarily want to rely on, but they're upside.
They're there for depth. And, I think let's roll with Bowers. That's your first thought. And remember thinking back at the Betting Odds episode that, he's heavily favored to go top 12. I don't think he'd go 11 in this situation. He could go 12, but I think his, where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll give the New York Jets Brock Bowers here at 10. So now we're back up at 11. We don't necessarily need to talk about, too much. We already talked about the Falcons, somewhat in depth at their pick. We traded back, got an extra, moved up into another top 100 pick. It looks like only Dallas Turner's off the board that we would have selected. I don't, like you said earlier, you don't necessarily think that Dallas Turner might be the pick. here we're just going to select Latu Latu, kind of like what we were going to do at 8.
If you're in agreement, like
I
that's
am.
what I would do. That's
That,
what my mind is said telling
that's
me.
what I
Like
would do, and I think that's what they want to do because what's his name? Jimmy Lake, right? Our defensive
Jimmy, like
coordinator.
yeah,
He
they
has the
did
connection as
yeah
well.
the
So
connection there.
I think
I do.
that's just gonna be the pick.
Yeah, I mean that's just kind of where I've settled is like I think that it's they want to take him. They're either gonna they want to trade back and get a little bit more value,
Hmm.
get Latu. If they can't trade back, they'll take him at 8. But they're hoping to trade back, get a little bit more value, and then I think their plan, truthfully, is jumping back into the first round later and getting a corner. But
Okay.
moving on to the Broncos. Broncos, tough one here because it's like
Yeah.
they need that quarterback so bad. They've missed out on the top 4 already. Uh, it was like I don't know. They're left in a weird spot because like I want to say there's even rumors out there of them willing to deal Sertan plus 12 to move up to the top 4.
That's
Um,
wild. I haven't heard that one.
yeah, it's been something I've seen quite a bit. It's actually like on Twitter is that the rumor is like Sertan 12 and more because they are desperate to get one of those top 4 quarterbacks. It sounds crazy, but it's like Bo Nix is kind of a thought
I
here for me.
I just don't think he's going first round. Like I just don't. I don't think he's going, especially not this high.
I, I'm kind of with you too, but like it's interesting because it's like they've even had there's even been smoke that Penix could be taken at 12 or 13, which
Hmm.
like I can't reconcile.
Yeah. I
Um,
think in this situation, trying to think. All right, so we still only have one tackle off the board. What do you, off the top of your head, do you know what their offensive line situation is looking at? Because to
um,
me, right here, I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, you have Olufashanu and you have J.C. Latham on the board, and you also have Quinion Mitchell and Terrion Arnold. Now, I just think it's
they
going to
they
be one of those
they
4.
got they have good offensive tackles. Um,
Okay.
they have Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey. So
Okay. Yeah.
not necessarily like the world beaters, but top, good solid starters. And then I know Quinn Miners is their guard. He's pretty solid. I want to say Ben Powers got a decent contract from them recently. Uh, I just I don't think they go offensive line.
Hmm.
Um, I think like they're aside from quarterback, unless they really believe in Zach Wilson, which is
Yeah.
a thing. Uh, you know, wide receivers is something that they could use, especially after the
Jerry
Judy
Judy.
trade. Even though
Yeah.
it's not like they love Judy, because like Tim Patrick's never healthy. Marvin Mims is
Yeah.
still working his way up. Josh Reynolds is a solid but unspectacular player. Cortland Sutton, they want to move him to apparently, or I believe. Um, Corner, like they brought in Levi Wallace, but Levi Wallace is not necessarily always like a someone I want to say is like a stud.
Hmm.
Byron Murphy is something like they could consider.
Yeah.
Um,
I just lean corner, honestly, for me. Um, Not
I
necessarily
did
their biggest
see
need, but I think in this situation, like if this how the board falls, like I don't know. That's just
I
what I'm
did
thinking.
see a rumor today. I don't know if you saw it of the Eagles being interested in moving up for this pick to try to get Quinion.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
I
saw
that
that.
is something I buy because I think Quinion is actually like a guy that the Eagles would covet. Um, but that's kind of I don't know. I think you're probably leaning the right direction if like things break this way and they stay put. I
Yeah,
feel like it might be Quinion, but you
Philly
know,
also to me doesn't seem like a team that makes those like drastic trade ups in that sense.
um, I'm trying to think off the top of my head like
Yeah,
what kind of trade ups they've possibly done. I can't really.
not off the top of my head. I'm sure some people
Did they move
have
up?
some.
They may have moved up for Jalen Carter, did they, or did he just fall to them?
No, he
I
fell
think it
to
was like
them.
a little bit of both. It was a little bit of both, I thought, but I can't remember for sure.
Well, he definitely fell. He fell to 10. That was the whole thing that we passed on him, and then Chicago passed on him. I believe Philly had that pick from something else though. I don't believe that they traded up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't reconcile doing Bo Nix.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna go with Quignon if you're in on Quignon as
yeah.
well.
No, I'm in on Quignon. Perfect. So we'll move to 13 with the Las Vegas Raiders. Kind of another team that needs a lot, especially a quarterback. I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't think same thing situation as the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, Michael Penix. I do not think they're going to be drafting here. Do you have any? Do
I
you have
think they're
something
in a
else?
better spot than that team. I was going to say I just think they're in a better spot quarterback wise. I think Gardner
Yeah,
Minshew is a
100%.
little
Like
bit
Gardner mentioned.
better
Yeah, yeah.
bridge than Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham.
Hmm.
I'm my personal leaning here is going to be offensive tackle.
Okay.
Uh, I I mean, their starting tackle right now is at right tackle is supposed to be Thayer Munford, who's like I want to say he
Hmm.
was a UDFA a couple of years ago. I mean, obviously Ohio State pedigree, like he's a talented kid, but um, we saw it on the consensus mock draft of Talize Fuaga is like the
Yeah.
consensus pick here. But I
Yeah.
would be between him and Fashanu. I'd even consider JC Latham, who I think is like a better true like
Mhm.
right tackle. But I think
No, I'm 100% in on tackle. It'd be tackle or just Terry Arnold here for me. But I feel like Vegas, or I guess the Raiders before Vegas, they always get those first round cornerbacks. They never work out. So I think here, especially with only one tackle taken so far in this draft, I think they would jump at that second tackle. Which guy are you leaning?
I kind of lean. I truthfully lean JC Latham. I think JC Latham's going to be viewed higher than like a lot of people think right now,
Mhm.
um, deserved or not. And like I think that just comes with the
Okay, yeah,
territory of being like an
I'll
Alabama
trust.
tackle.
And I'll trust you a lot more than myself with the offensive lineman.
Hey,
I
look,
do
I'm
think
not
I do believe
saying
yeah, I know. Just for compared to me, you have a little bit more knowledgeable, especially on that side of the ball. And I will say there has been like a kind of like that what happened to Olu talk. Like we don't ever really hear about him. So that could just mean a teams are like perfectly set on him, or it could just mean, he's not in favor with some teams as, once thought being that like top 5, top 10 type pick.
I think he's still in favor, truthfully. I think it's just like you said, I think teams are set on it and like
Mhm.
people are there's been some leaks about like what teams think of him. And I think it's a little bit of like, okay, let's push him down a little bit
Yeah.
so that he can maybe fall. But speaking of Olu, like
I was gonna
NFL
say,
level,
is this what
because
is
I
this?
think that's
Yeah,
the perfect
yeah,
pick here. They're slated to have Trevor Penning at left tackle, Ryan Ramczyk at right tackle. Ramczyk may never play football again. Trevor
yeah,
Penning was so bad last year, they benched him and slid Andrews Pete out from guard to tackle,
yeah.
which I don't even think he. I think the last time he had played tackle was college
It
before the
was,
last year.
yeah.
So I think Olu's the perfect pick
Hmm.
here. It gives them a guy that can
Yeah, and I can
take
see it.
Trevor Penning out of the equation.
Yeah, I can see it flip flopping if Ole went first, then the Saints here at 14 would take J.C. Latham. But I think this is a good like spot for both of these athletes for these teams. It just makes perfect sense, and I think the Saints are perfectly happy with Olu there, a once former
So
top 10 consensus pick.
yeah, and so the reason though, like I specifically went Latham or Fuaga at 13 and then Fashano at 14 is because Latham and Fuaga are viewed by the NFL for the most part, per like rumors, as right tackles or guards, and then Fashanu is viewed as like a left tackle or right tackle.
Hmm.
So Fashanu is going to slide in a little bit better at left tackle, I think, and then Latham's one of those guys that even if Thayer Munford is good enough to hold him off as a starter at right tackle, you can slide him in at guard. So
Yeah.
that's just where my thought
Makes
process
sense.
was.
So we'll move over to the Colts. Our fun pick here at 15 was always Brock Bowers. Obviously, he didn't make it here. I still think it could be a pick. It could be a spot where if he makes it past the Jets, that they could move up for him. But he's not on the board here at 15. Me personally, I'm just kind of thinking cornerback with Terry Arnold. That's what they need. They need
Just
defensive
book it.
back. Yeah, I think
I'm
here
on the same page.
yeah, it falls off the table a little bit after the major two. I think it's just he slides right in, plays that outside corner position, and they move on with their day. So we'll move on here. 16 with the Seattle Seahawks. They always need offensive tackle, or I should say offensive line. Seems like every single year. What do you learn
Yeah,
there?
with Abe Lucas's injury issues, I want to say they have a glaring hole at the interior positions. I I think Talize Fuaga is a slam dunk
Yeah.
pick for them. If and if it's not him, it would probably be Fatano to me. Um, but either way, I think those guys are what we would be looking at here. The only other person I would even talk about would be Jared Verse, but
Mhm.
I would lean Fuaga,
I think I
truthfully.
think I think with Fuaka, a guy who a lot of people have, kind of mocked, it's that 10 slot, 10, 11, 12 area, him falling all the way to 16 in this situation. I think they would just, sure up that offensive line. They're going to need to worry about quarterback coming up, but they have that offense already kind of set outside of quarterback. Sure up that offensive line a little bit, something that I'm sure Russell Wilson wish he would have had, and focus on that quarterback in the next year or two. And obviously, I don't think we're not going to give Jackson a quarterback in round one. So move to 17 with Jacksonville. I want to get your thoughts real quickly because I think Quinion and Terrion Arnold would have been their targets. They did not fall to them, unfortunately. Would they go pass rusher here with Jared Verse, or could they kind of quote unquote reach? I don't really want to say reach because I believe he should be in this area, but with Cooper DeJean at the next cornerback, or would Nate Wiggins be a better fit for them? What are you looking at here for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I don't think they would take Verse because they just paid Josh Allen and they just took Trayvon Walker, and I know
Yeah,
Trayvon Walker was a mistake, and even if he becomes a successful player, he was a mistake.
yes,
Um, and I don't think they're willing to admit that though by taking another edge rusher is where I'm basically going with that.
mhm,
I honestly I don't have Cooper DeJean or Nate Wiggins, or I do have those guys rated above the player I'm about to say, but from a predictive sense, my prediction is actually I kind of think Kool-Aid. And I
okay,
know Kool-Aid's kind of cooled stock wise, but I think Kool-Aid kind of fits um their style of football and their style of corner really well. Um
okay,
you kind of look at the other side, it's Tyson Campbell. It's like a similar type of build type player. And I think they need a corner. So, I mean, and I think you acknowledge that too, like with bringing up
yeah,
DeJean and Wiggins.
yeah,
Um, I kind of just think he kind of fits what they try to do on defense the best. And
okay,
from a pure predictive standpoint,
yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and again, I trust you in kind of analyzing exactly the types of roles that players would play. Obviously, you can just draft any cornerback and be like, oh, they need a cornerback, but some teams need specific types of cornerbacks. Some teams typically draft certain types of cornerbacks. I think we both agree that they both need that team needs a cornerback. So I'm definitely down for Kool-Aid and kind of play that opposite role and kind of try to shut down that side of the field because I desperately think they need a defensive back and to supplement that team. And with the top two guys kind of off the board already, I think that's the team, that's the pick that I would go with as well.
So, uh, what do you think? Do you think Kool Aid works for you
Yeah,
in
yeah,
predictive
Kool Aid,
wise?
yeah, Kool Aid works for me. That Kool Aid, DeJean, and Nate Wiggins tier of cornerbacks, I can kind of see them going in any order. I don't think any of them will be top two, but I can see any of them kind of go 3, 4, or 5. Me personally, I like DeJean, but like you said, this might be a better fit for that team. And at the end of the day, teams are going to be looking at a better fit for their team as well. So we'll move to 18 with Cincinnati Bengals. I want to get your thoughts here without me kind of spoiling my thoughts first. I think you already kind of know my
Uh,
thoughts from past episodes.
my thoughts would be either Amarius Mims or a wide receiver.
Okay.
Um, I think there's definitely a conversation that could be had about like a defensive player, but I don't think there's like a defensive player here that's like so overly valuable off the top of my head
I don't think so either.
that they would like pass on potentially grabbing someone like Mims or a wide receiver to supplement their offense.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
I mean, I think they always need offensive line. I think Amir Mims here could be a nice pick. We've talked about it. He has that high upside, but he also does come with that lower floor in case he doesn't, grow into that. But he does have that upside. We also have Troy Fontenot that's still available. As far as like a scheme fit and a fit for that offensive line. Again, I'll pass the torch to you. But that's kind of what I'm looking at between Troy Fontenot and Amarius Mims. Obviously, the fun pick, if I was controlling it, might possibly be wide receiver, but this is more predictive, not what I would do.
I mean, I do like the idea of Fanu for a couple of reasons. Like Cordell Volson is a decent player. Alex Kapp is a decent player. Um, Jackson Carman seems to have not panned out as, the top 100 pick that he was, top 50 pick that he was. And I think, Fonu, you can immediately slide him in at multiple spots on the line as needed, or, even be that sixth man if needed. I'm okay with it. It's going to be kind of like, do you value the high upside that Mims could provide, or do you value kind of a safer floor? So I don't know. Is Fonu? I'm cool with Fonu.
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards. I think they kind of want to go a little bit safer in that situation, if they had to choose. Then we also have Los Angeles Rams right here at 19. There's a lot of things they can do. I do think there's a guy that's kind of slid down the board. One of your favorite, top 20 picks of this draft. I would say the main thing here is they lost Aaron Donald.
Yes.
That's the main thing. So there's two guys I'm thinking of, and it's either a quote unquote direct replacement. Not saying the guy's going to be Aaron Donald, but playing that defensive tackle position that has that explosion and has that kind of athleticism that maybe one day he could turn into Aaron Donald light. I don't think anyone could be Aaron Donald, but or do they go more on the edge? But either way, get that kind of recoup what they just lost in Aaron Donald's retirement in pass rush. That's what I'm leaning here.
Right. So I'm with you. My initial thought is Byron Murphy, Nate Wiggins, Cooper DeJean. Those are my initial thoughts. I just looked at their depth chart real quick. They have Alaric Jackson penciled in as their starting left tackle for next year, who's like, dude was I liked Alaric Jackson decently fine when he was coming out, but he was like a UDFA 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's tough because Fonu just got swiped, and he's like a left tackle for them, or would be like a left tackle potentially. Mims, I don't view as a left tackle. I don't know. I think Byron Murphy's probably the best possible option for them, based on the way the board is broken.
Yeah, it's to me, it's between Byron Murphy and Jared Verse in this situation.
Jared Verse is a fair pick too.
And it's just he's fallen so far, but I don't know. They made some offseason moves also to grab a couple kind of edge rushers, right?
They got Byron Young, who they drafted last year from Tennessee, lined up at 1, and then Michael Holt. I don't know how you say his name perfectly, but he's their other outside linebacker right now. He's a crazy build. Like, he's a 300 plus pound stand up edge rusher for them. He's 311 pounds listed as an outside linebacker. So it's like he's an interesting player for sure. And then they have Kobe Turner, and then really not much else to speak about defensive line. So it's with not having a good offensive tackle here, it's gotta be Verse or Murphy, and so it's just kind of what they may value more with their defensive scheme.
I could just see them going Byron Murphy and just kind of replacing what they just lost. To be honest, I think they have some solid enough edge rushers around him, and he's a good pass rusher as well. So I think they're going to want to just kind of recoup what they lost with Aaron Donald, like him retiring, obviously.
Yeah, so I'm cool with it.
Perfect. So we'll move to 20 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Think the main two things here is going to be offensive line and wide receiver. There's been a lot of talk about a certain wide receiver, Brian Thomas, going here in Pittsburgh. It seems like they like each other a lot. Seems like a good match as well. They desperately need it. Now, if he's going to be used, I don't know. Just to throw that out there. But with Arthur Smith as their now their offensive coordinator. But I also think that they could desperately use an offensive lineman. But I'm sitting here at 20, and we've only had the big three wide receivers go off the board, and I just know there's going to be more wide receivers. So personally, I lean Brian Thomas here. This is just how I envision it going down. What about you?
So yeah, I mean, Amarius Mims kind of reuniting, quote unquote, with
Hmm.
Broderick would be something that's interesting and my initial thought. But you're right, Brian Thomas. And I think Brian Thomas kind of like fits that
Hmm.
offense, fits that team. But like you said, they now have the glorious Arthur Smith as their offensive coordinator, and I'm sure he's gonna, just scheme up so many great touches for him. Um, but I mean, we did look at it, and it was like the last time the Steelers have drafted a first round wide receiver
Yeah,
was what Santonio Holmes in 2003, and before that was Plaxico in '99.
yeah, they don't do
I
it.
think they don't do it, but like at the same time, it feels like they may be due for it, if that makes sense.
Well, they're due for it, but
Um,
also they haven't seen the success that they had before. Like before, they always had that day two wide receiver that was next, and like it kind of ended with Juju. And like once Juju, I mean Deontay Johnson was really good, but
it
like he
ended, but like
wasn't.
it didn't end. Like they're like
Well, no,
I
I meant
can't
like their
in good
success,
faith say
their
that
success.
they have hit on like almost every single guy, but like maybe James Washington. I feel like there
Yeah,
may be like one other pick in there that I'm like missing, but like
but I'm talking
I
about
don't.
like they don't have the multiple guys. Like they didn't get that AB, they didn't get that Heinz Ward. Like they don't have that guy. And like I mean, I think we
Well,
both love George
Pickens should be
Pickens.
that.
Yeah, I think we both love George Pickens, and obviously as a Georgia guy, like I certainly love George, but between his mentality and just how he acts on the field, I just don't think he could ever be the guy. And even if he is, they have no one else on the other side of the ball, or like other side of the field for him. So for me, I'm thinking Brian Thomas here, kind of stretch the field for him, get open, and just create that extra space, and kind of play off of what George Pickens can do.
No, I actually have been with you from the get go. I just kind of brought up the whole no wide
Yeah,
receiver
yeah.
thing just for
Well, it's like we said,
devil's advocate.
it's something. It's like there's certain teams that don't like they have a history of doing things, but like you said, they're kind of due for it at this point. Especially with they're still hitting on guys, but like it's not the same success rate as others, and like they just definitely got rid of Deontay Johnson, so they really don't have another wide receiver that they could use. So I think Brian Thomas here for the Steelers would be a perfect fit. We'll move over to 21 with the Miami Dolphins. For me, you know, two teams that could have used Demarius Mims just passed on him. I think Miami wants to protect Tua, especially if they are going to pay him all the money that we've been seeing rumors with. They have an explosive offense. They did supplement their defense in free agency. I think, Amarius Mims, unless I'm forgetting another tackle, would be probably my shout for them. It just seems like, take the best offensive tackle, and especially at the highest ceiling. And if we've seen one thing with Miami, I think they love ceiling plays. Like they love, swinging for the fences with their guys.
So I mean, they just paid Austin Jackson's the thing, and Teron Armstead's their left tackle. So I think you're right. Like they need offensive line. I just don't think it's necessarily a Mims because Mims is like he's not as flexible. Um,
So would you go like a Graham
my
Barton?
yeah. So Barden, Jackson Powers Johnson would be like those two offensive linemen that I would think of, and then the other side would be potentially like Johnny Newton if you wanted to bring Johnny Newton into things. I think those are like the top three options, truthfully,
Yeah.
as I see them. Um, I mean, they don't really use a tight end much, so having Johnny lined up as their starters, fine.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it would be JPJ, Barden, or Johnny Newton. Just kind of
Yeah.
depends on like what they really want to do, because I think they're more passable on the interior line than on the defensive side. Like their starting tackle on defense right now is lined up or supposed to be Benito Jones, who was like a UDFA a few years ago and stuff. They lost Wilkins,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I can go either way between any of those,
I
because they
just
did
think,
lost Connor Williams, who was their
yeah,
starting center too. So like,
I think I would. I want to say I lean Barton just because of the flexibility and he can play different positions, but I think center would be the most position, like the main position they want to fill currently. Um,
JPJ can play
he
guard
can.
too. He
That's
played he
very
played a
true.
full year as guard too, so I'm
Oof.
not worried about
I think it's
that.
between those two because I think they want to fill those gaps and they can get a defensive tackle later on to kind of like fill the need that Christian Wilkins left. Uh, Now between Graham Barton and Jackson Powers Johnson, I'm not. I would leave it up to you for that decision, but I think that they're going to try to address that offensive line, and if the interior, especially specifically, the center position is what they need, I think that's going to be their selection here.
So I'm gonna go kind of the surprise, and I'll go with Barton. And
Okay.
the reason why is because he's a little bit older, yeah, but he tested better than JPJ. And like you said, like Miami likes upsides and stuff like that. Like they like athletes. Graham Barton's a great athlete. Can played a full year starting at center, played multiple years starting at left tackle. Hard to imagine he couldn't play guard if he needed to.
Yeah.
And then they have Aaron Stinney and Isaiah Wynn as their center and left guard currently. Hard to imagine that somewhere in there, like between Armstead, Wynn, and Stinney and Hunt, like somewhere along those lines, one of those guys is end up getting banged up. I feel like so. I mean,
Yeah.
Barton can play all those spots.
Yeah. So I like it. I think that flexibility in the interior part of their line is what they need, and that's what they're going to target. So moving to 22, I'll just be kind of blown with it. Is it going to be Nate Wiggins or Cooper DeJean here? I think it's going to be one of those two, and either one of them I could see. Cooper could probably get
The,
on the field. Well, they'll both get on the field immediately because they desperately need cornerback. Cooper, obviously, with that flexibility, that the team wants to push him to safety. I agree with you, though. I think they
I,
personally would rather have Nate Wiggins.
that's where I'm at too.
Yeah.
So I like that
Okay.
was
Yeah.
those your exact line of thought was where I was at.
Yeah.
For the Cardinals, back up. So they've
Yeah.
gotten Roma Dunze already, so
Mhm.
they're at a spot where like edge rusher's an option, corner could potentially be an option,
So I think
offensive
this would be
line.
so yeah. So I think Jerry Verse is still on the board. I'll keep reiterating every single pick if I have to. He's still on the board here, but we see people like that fall all the time. Especially some people predicted it might be Latu with his medicals and all that. Right here it's gonna be Jerry Verse. They could desperately use it, especially after passing Will Anderson last year. However, they also obviously need offensive line. Again, I'm not 100% sure about their whole situation across the line, but Amarius Mims is also still there. We also do have Jackson Powers Johnson, like we just discussed, to play the interior part of that line. So I think somewhere between those three guys is probably going to be their target. Now they could also use defensive back and Cooper DeJean as well. So there's a lot of it's a good spot to be in for Arizona because you have a good amount of picks available to you.
Yeah, I mean, so looking at things like I didn't even realize this, but they brought in Sean Murphy Bunting, and then last year they drafted Catrell Clark, so they got those guys plus Sterling Thomas and Garrett Williams. So like they actually have some decent like depth to work with kind of at corner, and then like the Buda Baker, of course. Um, yeah, they've signed Jonah Williams, like so, and we've talked about like Jonah Williams is like good, not great. I don't know if I want to rely on him as my left tackle, but like he seems not open at all to playing
No,
guard or right tackle. So it
well, it
seems
is
like
wasn't the whole thing that Cincinnati kind of
in
wanted him
Cincinnati,
to?
yeah, like
Yeah,
he played. I
yeah,
think he ended up playing last year at right tackle, but like
yeah,
it seemed like he was pissed about it and
yeah,
stuff. And I think it's pretty clear like that he's seems to believe he's a left tackle, and then so they can leave Paris Johnson to right tackle. I mean, I think Jared Verse is probably, if things
So
break this way, like I think it's got to be Jared Verse.
I,
Like,
I I I agree. Let's just go Jared Verse here. They also remember have a pick coming up here again. This would be their third. That'd be their third first round pick. So I think with Jared Verse falling, they kind of go like quote unquote BPA, and just have them,
oh yeah,
get that
wow, they
edge
do have a
rusher.
third.
Yeah,
Oh
because
yeah,
remember
because they made that trade.
they traded back up, but they didn't use their other first round pick, so they
Yeah,
just kept that third one. So I think in this situation they're going to go BPA, a guy that could easily go in the top 10, top 12, and he's fallen all the way to here to 23. So we're gonna go with Jerry Verse for Arizona Cardinals here. So now Dallas Cowboys are up. What are you thinking here for the Cowboys? Because you know, I just automatically just go offensive line for them. That's the thing that they built their success on, and it's kind of lacked recently. So yeah, okay, we're on the same page with Jackson Powers Johnson because I don't necessarily think a tackle would be it, but the interior part of their line is what they're kind of lacking, and I think they want to get back to that that classic pre-COVID type Dallas Cowboys offensive line that was just road loading everyone over. So
yeah. So I mean, they definitely could go tackle, like if they wanted to. Mims could be an option here, um, but pretty much like we got Zach Martin at right guard, and Tyler Smith is sliding from left guard to left tackle to fill that void left by Tyron Smith. Tyler Smith has been a great guard so far. So, like, if
yeah,
there was a left tackle you felt comfortable with, yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think their interior, um, it's just the right guard, or I mean, their left guard, their center spot is lacking. Powers Johnson can fill
yeah,
that void if you're comfortable with Tyler Smith playing left tackle like he did in college. Which I
exactly.
mean, and he did it pretty dang well in the pros too. Like his rookie year, I want to say, like when Tyron Smith got hurt at one point, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he filled
Um,
it. He filled in fine.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, I think you fill in your center because you let Biotish walk, um, and I call it a day.
Yeah.
The Packers pick is also pretty obvious to
hmm
me, at least in my opinion. And I don't know if you're on the same
Yeah. Let me
page,
hear it.
but it's Cooper DeJean in my
Okay.
eyes.
So I was gonna go between Cooper DeJean and Amaris Mims. They obviously lost a lot on the offensive line. However, I don't necessarily think they need to go offensive line as much as they need to go in that that cornerback safety type defensive back room. I think that's something that I think they can survive and they're okay with what they have on the offensive line as far as like using a first round pick on it, but they desperately need defensive backs.
Yeah, I mean, so like Rasheed Walker was pretty good last year, and like he
Mhm.
was a guy, like he was a guy that at one point was like a first round mock at one point. I want to say
Yeah,
like he obviously fell in the actual draft. They brought in Andre Dillard, who's like a decent swing tackle backup. Elgin Jenkins is a stud. Josh Myers is good. Sean Ryan's a young guard, and then Zach Tom's pretty solid. So like yeah, like you said, like they lost like Bakhtiari.
yeah,
Holy crap, that sucks. But they have solid players still. Um, and then you look at their secondary, like they brought in Xavier McKinney, that's great. And then you got Jair, who's a stud. But then like Eric Stokes is a question mark.
hmm
Like
yeah.
the otherwise in their secondary, it's a question mark. So I think DeJean could fill some type of void that's needed there, truthfully. So
So we'll continue on with pick 26 with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Kind of to see your thoughts. There's a couple guys. I think this is one of those teams that's kind of like they're solid all over, but they're not, necessarily filled with superstars outside of like wide receiver position. Uh, they have some aging talent on defense, but I think they just paid. They did just pay Baker Mayfield, so would protecting him probably be priority number one? Obviously, like you said, they lost Sean Murphy Bunting. They might have some secondary needs as well, but would you think priority number one here would be protecting Baker Mayfield?
so they lost So Murphy Bunting was in Tennessee last year. They lost him
Oh,
a couple
that's
years ago,
right.
but
That's right.
they did lose Carlton Davis.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think that's
right?
who I was confusing
They
them with.
traded yeah their corner. And then we got Wirfs and Gedeke at tackle, Cody Mock at one of the guard spots. So, center and left guard's like kind of a toss up thing. Um, I don't necessarily see I can't think of a guard or center here that would be necessarily valued.
I don't necessarily think that a guy. I mean, Zach Frazier could get pushed up into the first round out of necessity, but I don't necessarily
Yeah.
see him as a first rounder. And then, like
So
we said, like Amarius Mims and Tyler Guyton still on the board, but they're more tackles.
so just by like process of elimination, right? Like they don't necessarily need Johnny Newton. They got Elijah Cansey and Vita Vea.
Yeah,
Joe Tryon, Shoinka, and Logan Hall have been kind of meh, thus far. And then on top of that, Yaya Diaby is still pretty raw. Randy Gregory, who knows if Randy
yeah.
Gregory is going to even be on the team for the whole season? They lost Shaq Barrett. Um, so like that kind of leads me to think of like Braswell or Chop.
hmm
Um, you know, I'm thinking like either edge or corners to pick.
I just don't
But
know
the
what
thing,
corner would be there. Because the main guys are all gone. Like this is when you start getting into that
this is
TJ Tampa
yeah, TJ Tampa I think is my
maximum. Yeah,
next corner up personally. And like I was saying, like that's where I could see them. I think, some people would talk about Kamari Lassiter. I'm not there with Kamari Lassiter, truthfully. Uh, yeah, I mean,
in
I'm
my
kind of I'm
opinion,
kind of thinking Chop.
I was thinking Chop. I think they would go high. Like I think Chop would be the next edge off the board before Braswell. I think he just has that, that that
No,
athleticism and that
in a
quickness. That
predictive in
yeah,
a predictive mindset, I do agree. I think Chop
hmm
would go over Braswell, even though
yeah,
that's not what I do.
yeah,
Um, Arizona, I think we were kind of talking about interior again, like with them earlier,
hmm
and this is maybe something we kind of like would have messed up on if self reflection wise picking for Arizona. Like we passed on JPJ to take first. Like first is a great value, but then now you're kind of in a spot where like there's not that interior, you know, offensive lineman that you necessarily want
yeah.
there. So you got the options. The way I see it is either Johnny Newton
hmm
or potentially doubling up on wide receiver, which like I don't know if I would do that predictively,
Yeah,
but like at this point it's kind of late first round, it's kind of hard to really be predictive, but like
it is because so much
think
stuff can
think
go
think,
on.
think of the idea. I don't know if NFL teams have ever done this truthfully. Like I honestly don't know if they've ever taken two of the same position in the first round.
Yeah,
But like think of the possibility of like, grabbing Rome and pairing him like off the rip with like Leggett or Xavier Worthy,
yeah.
like
I was
or
thinking
AD
Worthy there.
Mitchell.
Yeah. I just don't know if they would do that. I feel like
I don't know if it's ever happened, but it's a really
yeah,
fun idea.
it's a fun idea. I just don't. I wouldn't want to predict it, but like I think it would be the most fun option. Like if we were doing what we would do in this situation, like I think I would be down for Xavier Worthy. But as far as a predictive mob, the board fell this way. Like I'm thinking just Johnny Newton and just try to build in that interior. It's something that Arizona has seemed to like not want to do ever in the Kyler Murray era. Is just kind of like build out those offensive defensive lines. And if you can get Johnny Newton and Jared Verse like instant starters on your defensive side of the ball, I think that's going to help out tremendously. And like you said, like I would want to go offensive line more so the interior. However, it's kind of that trade off. It's like we could have went JPJ, but then Jared Verse is probably not going to be there. And then we could have went like JPJ and Chop, which would have been fine. But we didn't. So it's now Jared Verse and what kind of position you want to fill. And I think Jared Verse and Johnny Newton would be a pretty dang good duo to go in that end of the first round.
I think I would go Johnny Newton.
Okay. Yeah, because I just think it's just the easiest pick. Just build up that defensive line. They desperately need it, so it's not like it's a bad pick at all. And I think Johnny Newton's a consensus guy. If he went in the first round, no one would really have any like fits about. So I like it. I think that's a great start for Arizona having 3 first-round picks. I'm pretty sure they have an early second-round pick as well. So they're doing it right. They're doing it right with the picks and the rebuild. So we'll move over to Buffalo at 28. Pretty sure we're both in agreement that it's gonna be wide receiver. A
One
Texas
of
wide
those.
receiver. Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards too. Obviously, a Texas wide receiver. I've seen AD. I've seen Xavier Worthy. I if I had to pick between those, I think honestly, I don't know. I love AD
I
so
think
much. I think AD is
I think
better, but I don't know if they could pass on Worthy.
I think AD's the like easier fit
I
in thought
agree.
process, but I think Worthy's actually like what the team needs and like the hole there almost. And so the reason I say that is because Diggs was kind of like their deep threat in a lot of ways. Like I know Gabe Davis was a deep threat, but Gabe Davis ran a lot of like,
And yeah,
runoff type stuff.
and he would disappear.
But yeah, but like Diggs like was a deep threat kind of guy. They brought in Curtis Samuel, who's like a slot guy. They have Dalton Kincaid, who's a slot guy, and kind of like a possession guy. Dawson Knox, still Khalil Shakur. Like they have a lot of like not like possession type guys already. I
Yeah.
feel like. Um, I mean, obviously, like size is valuable, but I think Xavier Worthy really stretching the field would be
Mm.
valuable with Josh Allen's arm strength. Truthfully,
And okay, and this is gonna sound. I mean, I'm sure Buffalo people would hate it, but it seems to me like they kind of have little brother syndrome to the Chiefs. I mean, the whole petty thing about letting Diggs explore trade to any team they want except for Kansas City makes perfect sense. They obviously want to beat Kansas City, and him joining them would actually hurt them very badly. But it's just the whole pettiness of doing that. I think they might look at Xavier Worthy and go, he could be our Tyreek Hill. And
I
obviously,
think they
Tyreek
might
Hill
look
is.
at Xavier Worthy and be afraid that Kansas City would take him at 32.
I agree with that as well. I think they would. And it's just that whole like it sounds so bad for them, and like I truly think that like Kansas City lives rent free in Buffalo's head. It's Big Brother, they can't beat them, and I think they can see him being their new Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he's not on the Chiefs anymore, but we all know what he did with Kansas City. And B, like you said, they don't want him falling into the Chiefs' hands and having another Tyreek Hill with Patrick Mahomes. So I think here is Xavier Worthy just by that alone is they're going to be drafting him so Kansas City can't have him.
I'm with you. I'm
Yeah,
with you for sure. Look at the Lions. I think corners. Like a lot of people's
yeah,
initial thing. But I mean, Manuel Mosley, and then they made the move for Carlton Davis. Um, I think the other thing that I would consider would be like, I don't know, like actually, I think corners like there's not a lot of corner. There's not a great corner available without really
yeah.
reaching.
Now I will say we just saw them kind of quote unquote reach on 2 guys that became extremely productive starters for them as rookies. So I don't think in this situation if there was like this would be like a team that would reach because we've seen them. If they had like a guy, they're gonna go get him. So this is like a team that would like a Chris Braswell to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson, or if they a team that likes TJ Tampa or Max Melton because they desperately need defensive backs now. Like I there's not many teams I think that would like make a big reach on like down the draft board for a need, but like this is a team that I would. I think Dan Campbell and company just like they know what they like and they're just gonna get that.
I kind of think TJ Tampa here. I mean, I know that's like kind of making myself like a self-fulfilling prophecy type of situation.
Yeah,
Um, but like I
he's
feel like
bigger.
TJ
He's bigger
Tampa,
than Max Milton, right? TJ, think so.
uh, slightly,
Okay, yeah,
slightly,
it's not by much. I
not
just I
no.
just view them as not wanting like that tiny guy. I just can't see
So
Detroit wanting a tiny guy.
so TJ's a shade under 6'1".
Mm,
So he's 6 foot and 7/8, and then Max Melton's of like 5'11" flat out, so about 2 inches difference of height. Pretty much same weight, and then like pretty much same like arm lengths.
Okay.
Um, Max Melton can play press pretty well, actually. Like he's like I think he would fit as a pressman corner decently. I think Rakestraw would fit as a pressman corner really well too. But I kind of lean TJ Tampa personally. I think the
That works for
length.
me.
Um, I think the length. He's he's a strong press player, and when I say strong press, you watch his film. He literally will go to press or redirect, and he's not just pushing the wide receivers, he's pushing them over. They're falling over into the ground when he's redirecting them. It is actually hilarious.
Yeah.
Um, and so now that I got to gush about TJ Tampa a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm going to fill him in.
We're going to do it. Like I said, there's going to be reaches. There's going to be guys that get left out of the first round. There's going to be guys that get taken in the first round that we didn't expect. And it happens every year. So this could be one of those situations. So we'll move over to 30 with the Baltimore Ravens. Our fun pick that we did last time was with Xavier Worthy. It'd be a great spot for them. But it also is that caveat: are they going to use another first round pick, as we always mention, on a wide receiver, which I can see. I also think they need offensive line and defensive. Well, offensive defensive line. They could use some guys. I think they need to replace Patrick Queen as well. So, but I don't think they're going to be taking a linebacker here necessarily. Baltimore is usually a team that they let the board come to them, and there's usually a guy or two that just gets overlooked over and over and over again, and then just slides right into them. The whole Kyle Hamilton thing, for instance. So, what are you looking at here for Baltimore? Because obviously we can give them a wide receiver. There's plenty of them available. I just don't know if they would go wide receiver again in the first round.
I have a great one for you.
Okay, let me hear it.
Amarius Mims.
I completely forgot he was still on the board. I think that would be a good pick. They need that kind of. He just seemed like
Their
I can
starting right
see.
tackle right now is supposed to be Falele. I mean, I don't know if
Okay, yeah,
Falele was like.
he's all right. Yeah,
I mean, he's
but
like a mid-round pick, and I know there's
yeah,
like things to like about him, but he's not. He's not as nimble as Amarius Mims, despite being similar size.
and honestly, Amarius Mims just looks like a guy that would play for a team like Baltimore. Like this,
I think this is a very much Baltimore type of pick if
yeah.
Amarius Mims fell to them.
And like I was just saying, like I completely forgot he was still on the board. I don't know how because I kept mentioning it earlier, but like this is one of those situations where it's a guy that people think we're going to go top 20 potentially, but in this situation he slides down to 30 and just kind of like I said falls right into Baltimore's lap. And then, Philly and Baltimore, they somehow just sit back, they relax, they don't even worry, and then a top 5, top 10 player in the draft just falls to them no matter where they're at. And in this situation, like Mary Smith's not top 10, but he's pretty high thought of. I think I saw tweets earlier today that, Mary Smith is going to go higher than most people think. So it'd be a great situation for them. And I think that'd be a perfect pick. So we'll move over to 31 with the Super Bowl losers and the San Francisco 49ers. One of the situations where I think there's a lot of guys that got taken early in the 20s that they could have used, specifically interior offensive linemen. They probably could have taken a shot on Amarius Mims there as well, but he just got sniped from them. Obviously, defensive back, I think we talked about last time. I think that's another need for them. And then what are they going to do with Brandon Ayuk? Counting down the minutes that the AB clock gave us, they said in 6 days or whatever. Or no, well, AB said there's fireworks coming, and then like right afterwards, Brandon Ayuk said there's going to be fireworks in like 6 days or something like that. And, there's all the smoke of him getting traded specifically to Pittsburgh, and that would kind of derail some of these situations. But, he's still on 49ers now. Since we don't know exactly what's going to happen to him, I don't necessarily think that they would go wide receiver. What kind of position are you looking at for them? Okay, so you're going to go offensive line?
Yeah, Tyler Guyton's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. All you have to do is the horns down, and I know it's going to be Oklahoma. So yeah, I think they're just going to probably go best available here. I think Amarius Mims is the guy that we would have loved, but Tyler Guyton's not a bad.
Yeah, I think he's a decent consolation prize for them, and I think offensive tackle is like something they certainly could. Right tackle specifically, something they could use. I think Guyton fits at right tackle. He's athletic. He's a good mover. He's still got a lot of upside. I think he fits well for what Shanahan would be looking for.
Yeah, and
And
I think
then wrap.
they'd be very happy if Tyler Guyton fell to them at 31 too, because he's a
Oh
guy that
yeah,
could probably go in the top 30 easily.
yeah. He's generally thought of as going higher than that.
Yeah.
So wrapping it up with the Chiefs, um, I mean, a lot of different directions they could go. Right now they are like Wanya Morris is supposed to be their starting left tackle, so um, I'm not sure their tackle position is necessarily the
Hmm.
best. Um, I mean, so that could be like Kingsley Suamataya, uh, or Jordan Morgan could be an option. Um, there's obviously the option of like Lad McConkey,
Yeah.
AD, Leggett, um, even Malachi Corley. Uh,
Yeah, this one's
I
tough
mean,
because I think they would. I agree. It's going to be either wide receiver or offensive lineman for them. It just makes the most sense, especially with still on the board. I They won't have another pick until the end of the second round, so it's not like they have another shot early on. This could be a situation where they trade out and try to get an extra pick or so to fill more roles, but I don't necessarily, unless we project the team going to trade up here for Lamar Jackson this draft and trade up for Bo Nix or Michael Penix in this situation. I I think it's got to be either offensive line or wide receiver. There's some damn good wide receivers that are available here.
actually, I got a great idea. Actually, speaking of trade ups,
Okay.
and you feel free to say you don't think that would happen, but we just had the breaking news of Leggett saying that he was going to be taken at 33, or he'll be taken at 33 um, by the Panthers if he's there. So, and then you get 34 with the Patriots, who they just took a young quarterback, at
Hmm.
3 overall. Their wide receiver room is really lacking. Um, we're talking like the Chiefs obviously could use a wide receiver, and there's two really talented ones left here with Leggett and AD. But they need a left tackle. Like that's got to be your
Yeah.
priority with Patrick Mahomes, right? Potentially the Chiefs and the Patriots flip 32 and 34. The Chiefs get a little bit extra back. They can move back. They can get, uh, you know, Jordan Morgan, Suamataya without having to feel like they're overreaching. Um, and it gives the
Yeah.
Patriots a chance to pick between their guy of Leggett or AD.
Yeah. My only counter to that is that I'm looking at their picks and they have 34 and they have 68. And then that's it for top 100 picks. They have 103, 137, 180. I think 103 is a fourth rounder, if I'm not mistaken.
You're talking about
But
New
then,
England?
yeah, New England. Sorry. So it's just kind of like, would they use, like, they don't have that many picks, so are they gonna, and they need, like they've talked about, they want picks, they have a lot of positions to fill. Would they necessarily trade away, basically lose a pick somewhere, or lose value of a pick somewhere just to trade out for that wide receiver when they're two picks away from another wide receiver? Now, Grant, like you said, they could definitely go 80 and Xavier here, but then they can get Lad. So I don't necessarily know if it's like a dire need for them specifically to trade up and get one when they have a couple wide receivers that they could probably all take there, like we just mentioned.
You are right. I mean, they could. There is Lad available, but it's like my thing is Lad. This sounds so.
Hmm.
This sounds so old school, like in the worst way possible. Is Lad the guy that you want being your number one wide receiver?
Yeah.
Like I know it sounds stupid almost, and like we would hope we're kind of beyond that thought process. Like after seeing like guys like Cooper Cup or whatever becoming the main guys.
Hmm.
Um, but like Leggett and AD are those like certifiable. Like they have the number one size and like such to them that their profile is that of a player that could be a number one. Um, and like Lad's awesome. very talented, but like, do you trust Ladd to be a guy that can catch 10 catches a game for 200 yards if needed?
Yeah, that's the
And
flip
like,
side of that.
because like I don't necessarily trust Ladd to be that. I trust Leggett and AD's like body to hold up more than Ladd in that sense. And I'm probably being stupid, like trying to play that angle. But that's just kind of, I don't
Yeah,
know. You saw Edelman and Wes Welker do it too.
yeah,
Let's just name all the white slot receivers.
yeah.
But
I think to me, the only team that really trade up here is the guy to get Bo Nix or Michael Penix in this situation. I mean, I think the only team that really is capable of doing that, that needs it, would be Las Vegas. Because unless Denver wants to give like their a future first round pick, because they don't really have another pick to like the fourth round, which I'm not gonna. I don't think we should predict that because I don't think that's just crazy to do that right there. But they definitely could. And then also that would mean the Chiefs don't have another pick till the end of the second round, which I don't think they want as well. So Denver's in a odd scenario to get a quarterback because I don't know how they're going to do it unless they draft him that high. I just don't think they are. I think there's too much smoke there. But going back to this pick, I think it's either a trade up with Las Vegas for one of the quarterbacks or it's really bust and they just draft a wide receiver or offensive lineman here.
um, yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the idea of them drafting Sumataya or Morgan. Truthfully, and that's what, like,
Okay.
if you're not able to move and get like good value back
Mm-hmm.
to make it worth moving out, I would just take an offense, like one of your top rated offensive tackle left, as long as it's like not stupid crazy reach, um, and playing with that, and hopefully you get a 5th-year option on top of it. And I'd
Okay.
rather go tackle because like after them, it's a bigger drop off than what
Yeah.
you would have at wide receiver.
So I think I would lean Morgan here. Or would you lean Kingsley here?
I lean Morgan truthfully over
Okay.
Kingsley.
So we're in agreement there. So we'll go with Jordan Morgan. Kind of shore up the offensive line. It's not the fun pick of the wide receiver. It's not the fun pick
A
of
little
the
offensive tackle run to in the
yeah,
first round.
exactly. And that's something that we figured we'd see. Actually, an extra offensive tackle than we normally have. But perfect. That's going to wrap up today's episode of the Empirical Scouting Podcast. Go ahead and give us a follow on all social media platforms, empirical_scout. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, go ahead and like and subscribe below. For Taylor, I'm Taylor, and we will see y'all next time. Peace.